Hi, everyone. So I'm here with a very special person who's a friend, who's been a guide, a mentor, one of the few people I spoke to before I kind of launched myself in the big world of entrepreneurship. And she's always inspired me ever since. So please join me in welcoming Miss Ameera Shah. Thank you, Ameera. I think as I was introducing your illustrious career, which is probably just started, it took me back to maybe a year and a half back when you and I met in your office. And, I was kind of embarking on a journey of being an entrepreneur and talking to a successful entrepreneur. And I think there were very useful tips you gave me about what I should do and how I should go about making some choices. So, as they say, choices define us. And in life, what we are is because of the choices that we have made. So, I think it's very opportune for me to ask you that what have been some of your key choices that you have made and those that have charted the course of what you are today?
Thanks, Anu, for having me here. And very happy to see how your entrepreneurial journey has really taken off for you. It requires great courage. It requires being bold. It requires taking a punt on yourself. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is really all about. For me, I would say one of the things I was really lucky with was that the way my parents brought me up, especially both of them actually, is really to go against the grain. I was never brought up as a girl who was, sort of encouraged to be amongst sort of the crowd and the herd, right? I was always encouraged to go against the grain, doesn't matter your gender, etc., and do what you think is right for you. And that has helped me in pursuing my own path and talking about trade-offs. And when you have choices to make, I've never really struggled with the pressure of feeling like, oh, but this is what is expected of me, or this is what I must do, or I should do, that voice that goes on in all our heads. But it's always been about what is good for me. And what is suited for me. So I was lucky to be spared that pressure, I think, which unfortunately a lot of women are under, especially in India. Like one of them, I remember I was studying in the US. I was only 20, 21, 20, not even 21. And I was thinking what to do. And at that time, all my friends were going and joining investment banks and consulting firms. And, that was the hot thing to do in the US, get a job and sort of make your life there. And I felt, I was like, it's just not for me. I'm not cut out for it. I'd done an internship in Wall Street. And I was like, oh God, this is just not my thing at all. And I thought, you know what, let me go back to India and let me go back and lead and try to build something really like a small firm and make it into something larger. And that was one of the choices I made at the age of 21. And I came back and I started building Metropolis, which was completely against the grain. Nobody was coming back to India. Everybody thought I was mad. To leave the US and come to India at the time, to give up a hot job in consulting or investment banking and come to healthcare. It was just all these very random choices that people thought I was making, but one of the best choices for me. And I mean, like that, there have been many examples. But I think the important thing is just to try to hear your own voice.
Perfect. I think I'm sure that gives courage for a lot of women out there to raise their voices and to follow their dreams. I think you touched upon what's going on in India, and as you and I both know, that in current times, we're seeing a huge dip of the number of women out there, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're doing a job. And honestly, I keep reading all these lovely articles and data which keeps getting published, but it's two things which really stood out for me as stats. One is there's been a decreasing trend of women workforce. I'm largely focusing on professional workforce, which has dipped from say 2005 2006 till now to from 32% to now 19%. And at 19%, we are probably behind many other emerging market countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and also Saudi Arabia. It's probably played out over a period of time for many other reasons. And lately, I think COVID has created immense stress. We thought working from home may be a panacea for a lot of women, but apparently not. So, in your view, what is it that companies should do or the ecosystem should do? What is it that women should do? And what is it that families should do to support women to make sure we at least carry on building the diverse workforce, which has many other benefits, as you and I both know.
It's while we talk about how women have really progressed, and we have, as where compared to where we were obviously 40, 50 years ago, where there were very little rights, very little choices, no consideration necessarily for a woman's dream, no ability to have diverse dreams. And everybody had to sort of follow a very similar mindset, right? I think from there, obviously, we've come a far way. But the fact that during COVID, so many women have felt that they have no other option but to let go of their work, right? Because the man's job is a higher priority than the woman's, because they did not have staff at home, and probably they could not co opt the other family members to share the household burden equally. And therefore, the easiest decision for everybody in the family is aap kaam chhod. And that still tells us as to how that was sort of just a privilege given to the woman, but that can probably be taken away also at any point. It's like when you give the key of the home to your child, and at any point you can take it away from them. It's just, I think it's a feeling of um, like somebody has extended their hand and obliged you, versus something of you are actually empowered to make that call on your own. And maybe many women have taken that call independently. I'm not saying that it's all been forced, but I'm sure there's a mixed bag there, unfortunately. But even if it's made independently, the ease with which we leave our work every time we get married, every time we have a child, every time somebody family in the family is getting married, somebody leaves their job, there is any issue, we leave our job, the ease with which we do it doesn't ring true for the seriousness that probably a lot of women can bring to the workforce, and the messaging that they are also giving within, that it's not so serious to them. And I think it's a combination of that actually then stops women from actually moving forward. Because if companies and corporates think that, look, at any point something will happen in her life and she'll quit, right? Then where is that going to engage the company to give larger and larger responsibility? So I think the onus lies with all of us, as women, as corporates, as family members, to really let a woman, and she herself has to adopt and embrace, to take her role, corporate role, her professional role, even more seriously. And I think unless we do that, frankly, I don't know how this is going to change over the next 30, 40 years. Even today, while we're talking about the number of people in the workforce, I mean, if we look at our leadership teams with women, it's just ridiculous. We look at senior women in any part of society, the numbers are not that much. So I think if we take it seriously, others will. And I think it starts with us.
Yeah, I mean, I so agree. I often talk about the aspiration gap. I mean, it's like you just need to give yourself permission to do a little more and to aspire a little more and not succumbing to what has been given as the normal to you. But going back to what you said about the different challenges women are faced with, tell us a little bit about some of your challenges that might have that you may have been faced during your career, and what did you do to overcome that?
You know, um, Challenges that I was faced with was that I came into a complex situation. When you're starting your own venture completely from scratch, you can build it the way you want. You have different challenges there as well. In this case, there was a single lab that my father had built on his own. And I, even though it was a purely technical setup, and I actually brought the whole business angle to it and then scaled it up, I came into a setup where there was already a shareholder. I came into a setup where there was already a vision for that, and I had to then come in and initially fit myself into it. But unfortunately, I was fitting myself into something in ideas and vision that I did not agree with, people that I would not have chosen to work with, and at an age and a gender, unfortunately, that was not on my side. And we have to remember this was 20 years ago, right? So things were slightly different. They're still not great, but they were worse then in some ways. So I think, and again, not being from a medical background, again, put sort of a stamp of, um, oh, she doesn't know anything, sort of thing. Because in the medical world, unless you're a medical doctor, and especially a senior medical doctor, you don't tend to get very respected. And that again has changed over time, to be fair. But at that time, that was very much the case. So I think the challenges were many. I think the battles were many. And I had to really figure out which one to fight at what time. You can't fight all battles at one time. And I think it's important to pick the ones that genuinely matter. And the one that I decided to just sort of say is that, look, I can't fight people's perceptions. I can't make them just realize that I'm very serious. I can't make them not hold my gender and my age and my lack of medical degree against me. But what I can do is I can do what I think is right, and along the way trust that I will make such an impact in what I'm doing that automatically all the people with their prejudices will have to respect me whether they like it or they don't like it. And that respect may come grudgingly, but it will come. And it came, very grudgingly, but it came. It took time, it took a few years, but it came. And I think the important thing is to see the obstacles, recognize them, not deny them, because then we do ourselves injustice, to recognize them and then very quickly think, okay, now how do I jump past this? Because the minute we dwell too much on how the obstacles are high and big and long and difficult and challenging, we are not allowing ourselves to open our minds and be innovative and say, okay, how do I get past this and how do I jump over this hurdle? And I think as soon as my mindset works in that direction, is as soon as I see a problem, within a few minutes, my mind moves to, okay, how do I solve this? And I think that's just been my way of thinking always. And that helped me actually overcome all the obstacles.
It's fabulous. It's so inspiring, Ameera. It feels like, you were out of your comfort zone and you braced it with a certain panache and a sense of conviction. And I wish we could all do it in some ways. One of the often debated topic with women entrepreneurs, and I think you and I had this chat about capital. And on a lighter note, I remember when I was out there doing my pitches, I'd never done anything in spite of working 22 years with the bank. I mean, I was never on that side of banking. And there was this hilarious incident where I made a pitch to now who's a lead investor. And I think after 1 hour of pitch, the person turned around and said, I don't get it. So what are you guys trying to do? I just don't get it. And I was here with passion and all of the good things.
Yeah.
It made me really nervous, but I was glad we were able to convince them. But we did a survey at WiT-ACE with, WEP. And what we found is that even today, 72% of, I don't like to use the word women entrepreneurs, but in this case, women entrepreneurs who are trying to get access to funding don't succeed. And the reasons were sometimes it's about themselves as well, right? If you have a great idea and you have a great passion, and if I genuinely believe that I was down below there and if I could do it, many more can. But one of the ideas was I wasn't confident enough or I didn't pitch it properly. So as always, they started with saying I got this wrong. The other was maybe I couldn't convince the panel on the other side. Most investors are men, even today, whether I look at VCs or private equity firms. So I couldn't convince them about how I will lead it or how I will manage it, which again boils down to my leadership style. And the third one was maybe they were lacking confidence in my stability because of their perceptions. But mota, they were all struggling to get access to capital. And even if they got access to capital, it was a very tiny amount of 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs when the need would be running into crores. What can we do to change it as an industry? And what can women do better as well to get better access to capital?
I think we have to remember that investors are meeting out of every 100 people, they are meeting probably 95 guys and 5 women, right? Or 90-10. So they are used to getting pitches in a certain style. Now, what does usually, and I'm very stereotyping and generalizing here, but usually a guy who's presenting his business plan to an investor will first talk about all the amazing things he's done in his life, right? And all of those things which he's probably done will be multiplied by two. We'll talk about how he achieved X, Y, Z. There are a long list of things, right? How all these companies were built because of him, because of his work, da da da. After that, we'll then, so that's one. Number two, we'll set a very high aspiration for what he wants. Very confidently, we'll say, I want X, right? Whether he deserves it or not is a completely different story, but he will very confidently ask for X. That's the second part. And the third part, when questioned on saying, look, how will you make it happen? Without stumbling, will very confidently say, I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll never talk about, but listen, I'm a little bit concerned about this. No. It'll be just, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the general feeling that men, the perception they tend to create, whether it's real or not, is one of confidence, usually, and a sense of capability and confidence coming from within. And usually that, covers almost, I would say, 50% of the battle. Because assuming they like your business idea, they like your model, then they are betting on the people, the person. So they are betting on your own conviction of what you can do and your ability to communicate what you can do. On the contrast, usually again stereotyping, a woman who goes to raise capital will, number one, be far more humble about her achievements. She will be very careful in giving caveats and disclaimers, and I did this, but I wasn't the only one. There were 5 people with me. I was leading a team. Da 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 da. All these things are on the experience. Second, when talk about aspirational, will usually pitch much lower than what actually she wants, because she's scared what if they think it's too much, and therefore will not ask for too much, and therefore not show and demonstrate her aspiration completely. And number three, when asked, look, how will you do it? Will say, look, this is what I'm thinking, but I would love your advice. I would love your thoughts. It's always caveated. It's always hedged. And then, even though I have a really young child, I'll find a way to make it work. It's defensive. It's like, okay, there are these 5 things in my life, but I will manage them. So I'll try to manage them, but, I'll need a lot of your support. The general feeling is not one that, look, I'm putting my money and I'm going to make money here for sure. It's like, okay, I'm going to really have to handhold this person. And, and investors thinking that, look, when I put capital, I don't want to spend that much time because my time is money. So I think part of it is a lot on the way we approach it. And that's the way we think about our own businesses ourselves. And I think, honestly, the only way this changes is through practice. It's about practice, 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 and practicing with people who can give you tips and input on how to pitch better. Simple, right? Because I'm sure the capability, the commitment, everything is great. It's just about how do you communicate in a way that's really impressive, that somebody on the other side feels that I don't want to miss out this opportunity. This is going to be an amazing win, and I want to be a part of it. So I think it's a lot about that. And I think if we can teach our women and coach our women entrepreneurs to do this differently, just with a few tweaks in the way of presentation, I think we'll end up getting a lot more funding, and keeping aside, places, the exceptions of prejudices, and keeping aside where the business models are not good. All of those are exceptions, but assuming the person is deserving and the model is good, etc. I believe genuinely just with practice we can crack it.
Perfect. And when I talk to you, there is this whole confidence and conviction just oozing out. So, I can see the self belief in what you do, and that kind of obviously speaks in how you communicate, and how people perceive you. What I find that we have a big mentoring platform as well for women. One of the biggest issues which come up is just confidence. It's not always capability. It's not just about our entrepreneurship journey. It happens at work, it happens with returnee women, and it's something we have been trying to work with. So right now, like for example, I'm bringing a lot of women back to work, or I'm working with women to rise within the organizations. It's always this sense of, do I really deserve it? So imposter syndrome, or whatever we might call it. And also just, I'm fine. There's this whole satiate, when we talked about the aspiration gap. So funnily enough, I was in this conversation with a lot of I women who are kind of a little senior to me. And I was kind of pushing it and saying, look, why did you all just leave? And they're all doing a little bit of koi consulting kar raha hai, koi blogging kar raha hai, chota mata, matlab they're keeping themselves busy, to put it politely to you. But I know they're more than capable. And the answer I got was, we left because I just didn't feel valued enough. And there was a mixed emotion in me. And I said, if you all from some of the top business schools in this country are telling me that you didn't feel valued enough and you quit, where do the rest of the lot go? So there was this bit of confidence and maybe lack of hunger, whatever we might call it. But the confidence bit I wanted to focus on, less on the hunger bit, because I find that very, very pervasive, and it's becoming more acute. And so they hold themselves back. When I look at STEM, a lot of them don't want to get into hardcore techie roles. When we talked about CXO position, they don't want to do sales, leave alone investment banking or consulting, because these are perceived to be hard jobs. A lot of them opt for service roles because of the perception they suit women better. Simple stuff like ours are better. For example, HR will have 80% women, given I come from there, but only 10 or 15% HR heads are women. So this whole confidence bit is this, puzzle to crack. But any tips you would want to share with a lot of women who are watching you today?
So, firstly, thanks for the kind words. And the reality is, I wasn't always confident. The reality is, I didn't always have self belief. This has come with time. I wasn't born with it. But there are a few things that helped me along the way. So, number one, I mean, I think the biggest impact, a lot of the impact is obviously our childhood and how our parents bring us up. Do they encourage us to take risk? Do they show belief in us? Do they teach us how to make decisions? Do they make us recognize the trade offs? And I think these are things that we can do with our children to help them dream big. I often see parents of today's generation, my age or a little bit older, who think that driving self belief in their kids is basically giving them exposure to anything and everything, and on top of that, not saying no for anything. And to me, confidence comes through building resilience. It comes through having to work really hard at something, falling many times, standing up again, going through it, etc. And it doesn't come really from so much from just exposure to anything and everything. And I think there's a little, in my opinion, there's a little bit of confusion of giving exposure to everything, but not really going into deep in anything. So if you actually look, resilience builds from taking one thing and trying to do it really well, because the day-to-day grind of, if you're playing a sport, the day-to-day grind of going in the sun or going in the cold, going through it, playing with your teammates, falling down 20 times, breaking a few bones, getting up again, doing it, getting up at 5 in the morning to go do it, is what builds resilience. It is not doing piano 4 days a week and Mandarin 5 days a week and something else 4 days a week and trying to do a little bit of everything, right? So I think for a lot of it is about, one, the training as parents to our kids. Number two, it's about, once we are past the age of 18, 20, we have to take responsibility for our own lives. We can't then keep blaming our parents for what they did and did not do, right? And if you figure out, I think the introspection of figuring out what are your own weaknesses and your own areas of improvement. Why do we keep waiting for our bosses and our jobs to tell us what is the area of improvement? Do we not know? We can't be so silly, right?
Yeah.
I know what my areas of weakness were, and I can tell you in 2010, one of them was a lack of confidence, right? A lack of confidence in not feeling like I truly could lead the team the way I felt like I wanted to. The lack of confidence that I wasn't enough. The feeling that, what, I would be, at any point, somebody could usurp everything that I had done because I could not probably hold my own. And the only way that I could move beyond that to where I am today, which is with probably a lot more confidence than I had, was actually to go through my deepest fears and actually to go through them and not deny them and not try to circumvent them and not pretend that they don't exist. What does that mean? So, my deepest fear at that point of time was losing my business, right? For various reasons, I was in a very uncomfortable shareholding structure. I had a hostile investor. I had some very difficult situations. And my deepest fear at that point was, what, I'm going to lose this. And this is my baby. I mean, Metropolis has been my first child, literally. That's the amount of love I have for the organization. And that was my concern. And there came a fork in my life that I had to choose between having that fear and therefore not doing anything to test whether that fear was going to happen or not happen. And I was just going to wait for it to either happen to me or not happen to me. Or the second alternative was to take the bull by the horns and actually try to determine my fate myself, which still had a risk that I may lose it all, but it also had the chance that I may gain it all. And I decided to take that punt in humongous trepidation. I, by the way, raised 600 crores of debt at the age of 35 on my personal, right? I took that punt, knowing full well I could fail. And when I came out of it, so as I was saying that, taking that punt and taking on that debt of 600 crores and choosing to actually determine my own destiny versus waiting for this to happen to me and coming out of it successful really helped build my confidence. So I realized that actually exactly.
Perfect. So since Karma is here, we're going to talk about Ameera, the mother. And hello, over there. Okay. So as a mother, um, how are you taking on the new role as a mother? I mean, I know it's always a special moment, especially with your first one. But how has motherhood changed you or not in any way?
Hi. I think so luckily, I mean, honestly, if COVID had to happen, it happened at the right time for me. Just because it's given me the ability. I mean, honestly, in the earlier days pre-COVID, I would not have imagined working from home every day. But now it's become so normal for all of us that the ability to work from home, be able to see him every hour, every 2 hours, spend time with him is amazing. And still being able to sort of, do my work and run my business, without interruption. So I think, it's been such a fun and such a great 15 months. I was not one of those women who grew up thinking that, oh my God, I must be a mother and this is something I must do in life. Actually, yes, baby. I wasn't sure about it at all. And I think the last 15 months has just shown me, and by the way, connecting what I talked about earlier, one of the deepest fears I had was to be a mother,
Right.
right? And that's, yes, and that's one of the reasons that actually one of the reasons I actually decided to go ahead and have a child. Because I knew that something that I'm afraid of, there's a reason for it, and it possibly has the chance of impacting my life that much more if I'm open to it. And it's been wonderful. I mean, it's shown me facets of myself that I didn't know I had. It's shown me my own ability to be able to balance it all. And I've, again realized how much I love being in the family environment where, my child is there, grandparents are there, my in-laws, my parents, we've all lived together for the past 15 months. And I would not have imagined that situation either ever before.
Yeah.
So, sister, will you take Karma? Didi's come, go. Didi's come.
It's such an endearing image of you with Karma. And, the reason I just thought we'll, continue the conversation with Karma around is it will just give that inspiration to a lot more women watching out there that how you can balance the two things. Um, so last question, and then I have a small rapid fire surprise element for you, Ameera, is you seem to be having this dream run, at least from outside in view, although you were candid enough to share your struggles. But what would you tell 18-year-old Ameera now that you know what has happened? Would you change your journey in any way? Is there anything you would do differently?
Um, Absolutely. I mean, I think it's been a great journey with all the good and bad, and it's been a roller coaster journey. I know it's not been a smooth journey. I mean, just the last 20 years, I've personally and professionally gone through lots of highs and lows. And I think the one thing that I realized through it all is that all of it is temporary. From the outside in, it may look easy, it may look sorted, it may look everything is growing great. There have been times where things have been really, really bad. And I think to me, the only constant is exactly that, in Hindu thought, there's a thought about equanimity and there's a thought about being detached and not taking anything too seriously. And I think I would tell 18-year-old Ameera only that life is this journey of lots of ups and downs, lots of good and bad to come. And none of us know when it's going to hit us, what it's going to bring into our lives. But all we can do is to keep working on ourselves, is to be introspective, to keep tweaking and fixing ourselves as we go. And life will just keep throwing stuff at us and take it all with a pinch of salt, the extreme good and the extreme bad, because the journey is really in finding who you are in the midst of all of this. And I think to me, that's been the most pleasurable part of the journey. I'm still finding lots of things about myself, like I found out this last 15 months as to how much of a family person I truly am. It's not an impression I had of myself earlier. And it's something I've discovered about myself, and so I think just to keep trying new things to find who we are and confront them, to me is really the journey that I'm enjoying.
Perfect. So I'm going to just call out about 6, 7 words, and first word that comes to your mind will be wonderful to hear about. So I'm just going in a random order because I kind of thought this through the conversation that you and I've just had. Karma,
Love.
Metropolis,
Home.
life,
Beautiful.
Career,
Dynamic.
courage,
Essential.
choices,
Trade-offs, must do, very important.
conviction,
Must be learned.
Ameera,
Woman, um, nurturer.
nice. Wonderful. So, thank you so much, Ameera. I think for your candor, as always. I think every time I talk to you, there's are always new perspectives and new learnings that I walk away. I think, you've had a fabulous journey, which I'm sure will ignite many other minds, whether they are hearing you today or, in the future. So keep doing what you're doing, keep inspiring us. And, especially for me, I think you've been a great support from the time I started. So grateful and a personal gratitude to you. Thank you
Oh,
again.
thank you, Anu, and all the best with everything you're doing. And lots of love to all the people watching.
Thank you so much. Thank you again.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.